This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Frazer.
Ben, how are you?
I'm good. You?
Very well, mate. Excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's an episode that I think most people associate with the football field, but it's actually far more than that.
Yeah, far more. I think over the last couple of weeks of me looking at and researching our guest today, I like to think myself as a football man, the noughties and the 90s. I think I know majority of stuff that happened, but there's a few bits that jumped out with me. So without further ado, our guest today, Jess and Dom Matteo. Welcome.
Hi guys,
welcome.
nice to see you all here. Thank you for the invite.
That's quite all right. So, like Ben said, most people will recognise Dom from football, but I'll let Ben kick it off. And
Well, we're going to cover quite a bit today, and I think your story is probably got a hint of sadness, but a huge amount of inspiration as well. And so yeah, let's get into it. So first of all, take us back, Jess, to when you two first met.
Oh gosh. Okay, so there's a two-part to this story because we actually met when Dom first signed for Leeds United. I was briefly back in the UK. I was working in America at the time, and I took a small job showing people around some posh apartments in Leeds. Finished that job and was invited to a party that evening. Unbeknownst to me, it was the Leeds United Christmas party.
Oh.
And I met his lordship here. I met him dressed as a schoolboy. So he was in full school uniform with freckles, the hat, the long socks.
What, Grange Hill
everything,
vibe.
yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
So obviously I was smitten.
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
But we dated briefly for around 3 or 4 months, but I had to go back to America. Yeah, so he got out of it that time, but I came back later. I came back in 2009. We met again.
Were you stalking me at that point?
I don't think I was stalking,
Yeah, okay,
you know.
just checking.
I might have been.
Okay.
No, we met really, really randomly in a nightclub. And yeah, it just sort of, it went from there really, didn't it?
Yeah.
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah, 9 years. So
Wow.
we met in 2000 and then met again in 2009.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot had happened in those years.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute, because in those, 2000 to 2009, a lot happened.
I've got to ask this. Who were your schoolmates from the Leeds dressing room that were dressed up as...
So that night, the three of us that were dressed, well, Real Ferdinand was dressed as a girl, wasn't he?
Yes.
Was he?
Yeah, he
Well,
was.
he just signed.
He
So.
just signed, so we're trying to get him in the gang, really. But he didn't need much persuading. Real.
He looked really good in the skirt.
did.
Rita. I'm
He
going to
did,
call. I'm just going to refer to him as Rita now.
Yes, that's fine. He won't mind that. No, but I think when you've got him, it was him, Michael Dewberry, and myself who dressed up.
That's a strong three, by the
Well,
way.
it was.
I don't remember anybody not being dressed
They
up.
were
I
all
think
dressed
the
up,
whole
but
team-
we've got the picture at home, haven't we, of us three together?
Yes, yeah.
Because I think it was a centre half thing. I don't think Lucas did he? I'm just thinking of the Leeds players. So it was all the centre halves together, and we called ourselves the A team.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I don't know who was who in the A team, but yeah, it was a strong defence. But obviously with Rio coming in, Rio actually was very, very funny. He was one of the real characters, and it didn't take him long to get in with that group. And obviously I was already there, and I roomed with Rio a few times just to get him embedded into the Leeds banter. But like I say, Rio didn't need that. And everyone thinks that when you think about Rio, everyone associates straight away with Man United. But if he's honest, he loved his time at Leeds United. Not that I'm sticking you in, Rio, but yes, you did. You loved your time at Leeds.
I've seen a few interviews where he talks really fondly about his time at Leeds.
For sure.
So if we go back a little bit before that, because I'm a big Red, as you know.
Yeah.
What was it like? Early 90s, 92, I think you signed for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Just take us back to that, Dom.
I think first and foremost, it was when I remember that, obviously you start as a 10-year-old kid, you go to the training sessions Tuesday, Thursday night at Melwood, which is obviously all changed now. But for me, them memories of just walking as as a young kid at 10-year-old, I knew straight away it was going to be really competitive because I grew up in Southport. Everyone thought Southport was posh. So for all the Liverpool lads, proper Liverpool Scousers who could obviously, I can turn Scouse if I need to, you know what I mean? But I'm obviously from Southport. But I think what was great when I first walked in was that Robbie Fowler, of all people, was in an Everton kit the day I walked in. So Robbie will obviously say something different, but I know because I was there. And you might say, you've got a bad memory because of what's happened. I've not. My memory's bad, but you did have it. You were an Evertonian at that point. There was a lot of Evertonians in that group at that point as well. Robbie came in and just was just incredible straight away when I first watched him. But I think for me, I knew straight away that this is a step up from playing for your local team, etc. This was, even though I played for a great local team, Birkdale United, was a great little team, but when you're with these lads at that age, they were angry, they were horrible, because they wanted to get to the same level as all of us.
Sticking on Birkdale, when me and Ben were talking about this earlier, that I didn't know this, and like I said, I'd like to think I know a lot, but
really,
Kenny I know a great deal. Kenny Dalglish spotted you.
Yeah, I mean, his son was a little bit younger than me, and he played for Birkdale United as well. And obviously, Kenny was living in Birkdale. That's where we all aspired to live as kids, but obviously we didn't until we, you made a few quid.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kenny had obviously watched his son play in an earlier game and stayed around to watch a few of us play as well. Because, like I said, we had a really good, strong side, one of the best teams in the area. And yeah, he's obviously seen a few of us, to be honest, play. And he gave us an opportunity to go to Melwood training. I think there was 3 or 4 of us at that point to go and have a training session. And yeah, that's kind of how it first started. But to get that little, insight when Kenny's looking, I suppose we were all kind of shocked just to see him, because I'm being truly on this. He was my hero. Yeah. So I felt a bit of pressure, even though I knew I had quite a bit of ability at that age. There's other kids just at the same level, being honest. And when you see someone like Kenny, I just stepped up my game a little bit. I thought, I can't be missing out on this opportunity, because in a way it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to impress your hero. And hopefully I did. Well, maybe I did, because I got the chance to go back and have them training sessions again. So that was incredible. And just to, the awe of Kenny Dalglish, I still get nervous when I see him now, to be honest. But
I mean, he's a huge part of Liverpool's history, and to be spotted by him and then given that opportunity to play in front of him, I imagine, as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, 10-year-old.
That would have, yeah.
I just think even when you get to the old training ground, at Melwood it was called back then, it was just incredible, because you knew this is where you want to be as a Liverpool fan. This is where you want to be. You want to try and step up your game, and you want to improve. And it was tough. I must admit, it was tough. We had a Scottish coach, Malcolm Cook, who was really good with us, but he was really honest. But at times could be a little bit, not brutal, that's the wrong word, but he was just trying to make us all better. I think as well, you've got to be physical. I know nowadays the kids, my little boy's 10, and Luca's 10,
He's mine as well, by the way.
Yeah. He is, yes. Okay. Just checking on that one, love. Yeah. My memory is dodgy. But, just, when I see Luca's teams playing now, if I think back to my era, it was brutal at 10, and I think the kids nowadays have to learn quickly as well. But obviously we have to learn even quicker. If you're going to get anywhere near being a footballer, you had to have something about you, whether that was putting a foot in, be a goal scorer or whatever.
Just to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, you had to, because there's that much competition, especially in the Liverpool area. I don't care what anyone says. It's a hot for everyone. Everyone wants to play for Liverpool or Everton. That's all. There's a few went to Tranmere, but not many. It was, that's not me slagging Tranmere off, because, John Aldridge would knock me out. But it was literally, it's one of those you go, wow, these lads want to put a foot in. And I think for me personally, I had a bit of that as a young age. I could put a foot in. I wasn't as tall as what I ended up. I was quite small, so I had to look after myself. And I always say this, and I always say to my family and my kids, everyone winds me up at Ellen Road and Anfield when I'm talking. I always say the same things to young kids. If someone asks me a question, what do you have to be good at as a young kid? I always say you have to be good at the basics. In any form of life, you have to be good at the basics. You have to know your job and be good at your job. And then as you get better, you can progress into something else.
And that goes in business as well as in sport, mate.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so I felt like that's what I was good at. I was good at doing all the basics. Whichever position they put me in, you're going to get something out of me. And that's kind of where it all started for me, learning them positions to be in as well.
you played under some great managers, but at the end of your career, Gerard Houllier came into Liverpool. Just talk about that relationship before the move to Leeds.
Well, it was an interesting one because I don't know if it's happened before when you've got two managers, because obviously we had Roy Evans as well, and Gerard Houllier, so it was joint managers, which was very difficult for all of us to actually know who to talk to, if you understand what I mean. Because when you've got two managers, in my opinion, it was never going to work. That it was always going to be Gerard that was going to be the main manager at some point. And that's no disrespect to Roy. It's just Roy been there, seen it and done it with Liverpool and didn't quite work. So I think Gerard was the one that was going to install maybe a little bit more discipline. I think everyone would.
And it was the wave of that sort of European manager coming into the Premier League as well.
Yeah. And listen, Gerard, for whatever reason, I think my last game for Liverpool was against Inter Milan in obviously a friendly. Just before the season, like 2 weeks before the season or 10 days before the season at Anfield, and I played really well. And obviously, you win 5-0, and Inter Milan, even though it's a friendly, it doesn't matter. You're playing Inter Milan, so you're at it. You win 5-0, and obviously within a week or 10 days, I'm literally getting told that I possibly might have to leave, even though I've just signed a 5-year contract with Liverpool at that point. So.
I was going to come on to that because it was it was a shock to the footballing fan after the season that you had, or the build up to it, to then go into Leeds. And don't get me wrong, Leeds at the time, great move. But how did you cope with that?
Because I imagine mentally like that, and this is the thing that I think football fans perhaps don't appreciate. If you were to look at, if it was a graph, you probably on cloud 9, 5-year deal, etc. And then bang, actually, Dom, you're not part of our plans.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it was probably the hardest couple of weeks I've ever had as a footballer, because once Gerard had kind of said to me that we're signing Christian Ziege, and everyone thought I had an issue with Christian. No, I didn't. I knew Christian Ziege was a very, very good footballer. Could he do what I did in certain parts of the pitch? He was better at, he's a great striker. He had a great left foot. He had a wonder of a left foot. Actually, I think I remember him for taking free kicks and good set pieces. But I didn't see him as a brilliant defender, and he didn't read the game, in my opinion, the same as me. But again, the manager had to make a call on who he wanted. He was the one who's come for a lot of money. I'm a young lad who's come through the ranks, and maybe Liverpool's seen that as a slight business deal as well, because they got 4.25 or 4 point something for me, and obviously when someone comes through the ranks, it's a lot of money, I suppose. And they're thinking, well, we'll get Ziege in. He's got a lot more experience. He's done more stuff than what Dom has. But to be honest, there was a few, like Didier Man, for example, obviously played with him with his country, with Germany, and he basically said to me, Dom, you need to stay about because you're a better player than him. Because you can go play all over, and also you're a better defender than him. Because we have lots of players who could play well in the attacking areas, but defensively at that point we weren't that great. So me going there is because he was more attacking than me. There's no two ways about that. I can admit that, and he had different qualities to me. But yeah, I think Gerard was doing the right thing for him and the club. So I understand that. I had no bad feeling about that. And I think one of the biggest compliments, and when I bumped into Gerard. It was somewhere in London. One of the nights they have, is it the Robins?
Nordorf Robins.
North Robins. I think it was one of them events where I bumped into him, and he actually said, fair play, Dom. I think I made the mistake on that one. Which, fair play to him for saying that. He didn't have to. I'd accepted and moved on, but fair play to him for coming up to me and mentioning that, because he's not here anymore, but he did a great thing for Liverpool. He was a great manager and won all them trophies.
Absolutely. I mean, year 2000, you moved to Leeds, and you've already named Didi Hamann, Rio Ferdinand, Lucas Radebe, Michael Dubry. Who's the best 11 that you've played with? You included, and obviously being the versatile player where you are, the only place you can't go is in goal, I think. So,
well, I would if it was that. No, I think I've been looking through this a few times. We've always done it, but I think I've said different teams a couple of times. But when I've really looked at this, I'd probably go goalkeeper. the steadiest one. I mean, playing with Bruce Grobbelaar, it wasn't for so long, so I didn't really have that relationship. But unbelievable character. Same with David James, great ability. But I think the one that was the best for me was.
Nigel Martin.
There you go.
Nigel
Jess has
Martin,
just helped me out there. Nigel Martin, because obviously Nigel didn't get enough games for England, in my opinion.
Yep.
Very solid, knew what he was doing as a goalkeeper. And he talked and organised, which is always so important. Any goalkeeper nowadays, I see the keepers nowadays, everyone should be loud, talking, organising, and he was full of that. And obviously had an unbelievable career. So I'd say Nigel Martin, just because he didn't take any chances with his goalkeeping, whereas sometimes you see other people trying to get stuff. He knew what he was capable of doing.
Consistently good.
Consistently good. And I knew that I was, as a centre-half, I know I'm going to have to head it because Nigel didn't come for that much. So at least you know where you're at. And that worked for me. And obviously playing at that point, I think it was Rio or Dubes or Radaby who we'd have played. But between all of us, we'd all played in that position. I think we'd all say that he was the steadiest. And obviously Paul Robinson afterwards. But yeah, I'd have to go Nigel Martin. Right full-back is a guy that doesn't get enough credit in football, but he obviously does when I'm at Leeds, is Gary Kelly. Very steady away. Yeah.
Gave the penalty away and at the San Siro when you scored, didn't he? Well, I'd say gave the penalty.
Yeah.
It was harsh. It was a harsh penalty, but he was a very good player.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Kelly.
Gary.
No, but but do you know, you're right, Gary would laugh his head off anyway. You know, we asked Gary to come into the lounges all the time. He's just not interested. He loves his football, but he'd rather just watch the game. He don't want to chat about it. He's had a great career, over 500 games for Leeds. Yeah. And I think he goes under the radar sometimes, but not to me and not to the fans in Leeds. And I don't remember Gary having too many bad games. You know, he was pretty steady. And I think I like players that...
Solid 8 out of 10 every week.
Yeah, and also what he brought to the dressing room, because that's a huge part of a team in football, is the dressing room. Kells was one of the best lads to be around. I mean, I can't really say on here what he used to get up to, but he's bonkers. I mean, the Irish alike, just anything goes, and Kells was like that. Even to this day, on the WhatsApp group with the boys, he's still top of that, you know what I mean? Top of the charts on that. So him, for the way he played and obviously what he brought to the team as a leader, and he's captained the club as well. And then in the defence, obviously, it's really difficult, this one, because there was quite a few that I really thought were top players. But obviously Rio Ferdinand, which obviously playing for Liverpool and Leeds isn't well. I do get a bit of stick for mentioning Rio, but why can't you? Because he was a Rolls Royce of a footballer.
I've got to ask you this because him or Van Dijk, because they're
think,
very similar.
Yeah,
but when you say about Rolls Royce defenders, there's people are saying Van Dijk's probably arguably one of the best ever to play in the Premier League. But there's got to be the similarity between him and Rio, isn't there?
Certainly is. They both read the game so well. Van Dijk probably more physical, I would say, and probably gets more headers and scores more goals. But I think on the ball, I think Rio was a bit of a class act on the ball, that is. But I'm not saying Virgil's not, because they're talking about two of the elite players on different eras. So I think...
I mean, you wouldn't get past them two, would you, if they were playing together?
I don't think you would. I think them two, like you say, and both both quick as well.
Yeah.
You know,
deceivingly quick.
Yeah, so Rio would have to go in.
You alongside Rio. Who's at left back?
Left back. This was another one I was discussing, weren't we? It's because there's a few, but I'm gonna have to go for it in the end. Yes, you've thrown me off here.
Was it Harty?
I did say Ian Hart, only because of the quality he had on the ball.
Wand of a left foot.
That's it, a wand of a left foot. And
very good with set pieces as well.
Yeah, and brilliant. Sometimes obviously penalties as well. I think at one point he had a better record than Beckham, if I'm right in saying that. I mean, every time I felt like he took a free kick, it was either it was going in or it was close. Yeah. And I think his quality on the ball, and even he took penalties as well. And he wasn't scared to stand up at big moments and take them penalties or take them free kicks. But again, another Irish lad with a load of character, underrated. People get used to give him a bit of stick at times, maybe pace. But he read the game really well. I don't. When people say that he got done for pace, I think he's done that many times. We've all been done. I don't care who you are. We've all been done by somebody who's got a load of pace. That's for me is a bit of a get out for some people. But
let's move into the midfield then, because
this is the hard bit now. Because midfield, if I'm going to start off, I'll go right wing. So I'm going to play a 4-4-2. Keep it simple. My kind of team. So right wing, even though he drifted all over the place, Steve McManaman, 2 Champions Leagues, one of the best players to play with as a defender or wherever you play, because he got on the ball and just carried it for 4 or 5 seconds and just, gives you time to reset, but never really give the ball away very often. Class act, what a player. And obviously got a bit of stick when he left Liverpool at times, but how can you blame him? Going to go to Real Madrid and have that career, and him, McManaman, just brilliant. And even like, for example, when I was in hospital, one of the first people to come and see me in Leeds was Macca, and class. Midfield, I'm going to go to the left wing first. Even though this is not where I played with him, because he played as like kind of a holding midfield with John Barnes, because obviously John Barnes educated all of us as young kids at Liverpool. He told us what we're doing wrong and put it right. And I remember when you play with someone like that, your job's easy.
You made your debut coming off for him. He was injured, wasn't he?
Yeah. No, my debut was Man City actually before that. You got that wrong, haven't you?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Man City at the.
I think it was the big.
I thought you come on for it. I thought he was injured and you came on, but
no,
not me.
No, because generally,
you were there.
No, generally, I didn't think I was going to start, and Graham Souness had pulled me and said, "Listen, I need you to play," and you're starting. So I actually played left wing, I think. Yeah.
So Barnsley one side, Macca the other.
Barnsley, Macca, and then. For me, the most complete player I've ever played with.
Oh, I know you're going to say.
Steven Gerrard.
Of course.
Stevie G. Like you say, I just felt he could do anything. I remember in one of his first games for Liverpool, he played right back and ran the show from a right back position. It was only kind of Trent and stuff who do that now, but Rio, he was just like, every time I seen him get on the ball, Stevie, it was just like, he had this bit of anger about him as well.
Edge,
yeah. But, obviously we've seen the quality he had, but he had a sending off in him as well, which most people, the top players have. If you look at the Keanes, all them Vieiras, all them top-level midfield players have to have that edge, and he had it, and he could put a foot in. He was rapid as well. People don't realise how quick he was. He was so quick. But he bossed things, didn't he?
Yeah.
He set the standards, actually, at such a young age.
He's a leader.
And by the way, if the ball, he's when you're at training, he's firing them balls into people. If you can't handle it,
get out.
See you later. You're off, because that's the standards he wanted to set. And let's be honest, him and Carragher ran the show at Liverpool for a long time. But yeah, I mean,
he doesn't really need anyone next to him, but next to those three. But who goes alongside Stevie there?
Well, which position are we looking at now then?
Centre. Well, he goes centre mid.
Centre mid.
4-4-2.
Yeah, 4-4-2. Yeah. So, right. There was a few. I was gonna throw a little curveball in, but I have to be honest.
No, go
on this one. I'm gonna go David Batty. I mean, not a lot of people don't understand what Bats did, and he doesn't really like football very much, Bats. But you might see him every now and again. Just pops into your world. Last seen in Scarborough here. Anyway, yeah, my mate's seen him walking his dog in Scarborough, but that's just Bats. But do you know when you talk about, I could talk about all the superheroes that you played with, but I just think with Bats, I just knew what I was getting with him. Especially as a defender, he just wants to whack people. Yeah. I remember it was one of Joe Cole's early games, and I'd just not been long at Leeds, and Joe was it was probably one of his first starts at West Ham. And we're chatting before the game, and I think I must have been playing in midfield or that day or something. I was up against him, sort of thing, a little bit. And me and Bats were chatting before the game, and Bats just looked at me because David O'Leary had been like highlighting how good Joe Cole was, this young player, and all this. And Bats just give me a little nudge and went. He said, "Don't worry about him. I'm going to absolutely smash him." And did he? He smashed him, and he came off very quickly. So that was the type of character I liked to have. It wasn't like
forgotten man.
He was a forgotten man. He still is.
He did that job for England as well, really.
And let's be honest, England when they won that World Cup, when no one else wanted to take a penalty,
he stood up. Yeah.
I'll have it. Sorry, I mean, look at all the players on that pitch that day who didn't take it. There's a lot. I'm not naming names. A lot of my mates, but let's be honest. David Batty was the least person out of all of them. He should have been last.
Yeah, balls of steel. Yeah,
but he went out and did it. And you think he won the league with obviously with Blackburn, which is incredible, really, isn't it? I know they had a lot of money back then, and then to obviously he won it at Leeds as a young lad. The last time the Premier League was won, when it was Speed, Batty, McAllister, when and all them lot played together in midfield. They were a great side. So I'd have to say Batty, but I know that'll go against a lot of other people's opinions. But
No, that's your opinion. This is your team,
He
mate.
was solid.
And then the top two.
Again, this was an absolute nightmare for me because there's so many that'll give me stick. But only from my point of view, growing up with this kid, Robbie Fowler, as God as we have to call him, which is a bit weird.
Liverpool and Leeds as well.
Yeah, Liverpool and Leeds as well. Another connection. I mean, I didn't even know he'd signed for us at that point for Leeds because he didn't tell me. And his dad, God bless him, his dad walked into the apartment that I lived in because Peter Risdale lived in the same block as me. And I looked in there and I thought, Robbie's dad. And I've looked over and I went, all right, what are you doing here? Then obviously and then Robbie's obviously kept it quiet. He was coming, he hadn't said nothing. But yeah, Robbie was, I just knew straight away as a young kid, especially when you're like 16, 17-year-old kid and you're playing in the A and B team or the reserves. Robbie was just so far ahead of all of us just because his goal scoring, he didn't have to try.
Just natural.
It was just so natural.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about all the players who've got that natural talent like that, I can't think of anyone who had a natural talent like that. I mean, if it wasn't for I think it was his hip, he was so quick, Robbie, as well. People don't realise how quick he was. He was rapid as well. But yeah, incredible player. Loved the guy. Still, we're still mates. Me and the wife, we always pop up when we're in Dubai doing something. He's always around. I think his daughter's over there now. So he's just one of the guys that I just wanted to do well. I think when you grow up with someone, you actually want them to do.
Yeah.
Not better than you, but you know what I mean. You actually, I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
And even what he does now for going further forward, you're rooting for certain people. I always root for Robbie. I want Robbie to get a Premier League job or a Championship job because he deserves it.
Yeah.
He's put his hard yards in. So yeah, Robbie, definitely, 1,000,000%.
And who's playing off of Robbie?
Well, obviously, I could have said Rushy, I could have said certain people, but I'm going to go for a guy that we know very well, and we've seen him in Croatia last year, Big Mark Viduka. What a player. Could have played anywhere in the world, anywhere, any club, in my opinion. Just had that super talent and had the edge as well about him, that little edge about him,
Strong.
Very strong. But when you knew when the ball comes into him, it's sticking.
Yeah.
So you've got that little, it gives you time as well when that's doing. But yeah, incredible player, but obviously on the ball as well. He had a great touch, could finish it. If ball comes in the back of the net, I mean, the Liverpool fans don't like me mentioning this one because obviously he got the 4 goals, didn't he, at Ellen Road, which I don't think many people have dismantled Liverpool like that single-handedly. I know the Liverpool fans will hate me for saying this, but that day, he just tore them apart. You couldn't get near him that day. I think certain players at that level, when they have a day like that, unplayable, and he was, and we had great coaches then at that time. Eddie Gray, I think Brian Kidd was still about at that point. So it was, the Vidukes was a super talent, and like you say, he was angry as well, which I like. Another angry player.
So we'll bring this bit to an end, but just to end this part. Which manager are you choosing? Because you played for some greats. Who was the one that got the and is that the one that got the best out of Dom Matteo?
If I had to say, probably David O'Leary because he was a centre half. 700 odd games for Arsenal, and what he tried to do was help me and improve me.
Yeah,
and he was very good with the striking side of it. Believe it or not, he was putting the players in positions. I think David O'Leary got me.
Yeah.
And the records for itself, when someone said to me, how many times are you on the bench for Leeds? And I said none. The Statos at Leeds, I had to go and Google that, but I never was on the bench for Leeds United. So that's what David thought of me, I think, at that point.
I bumped into him at Royal Ascot a couple of years ago, and we'll come on to that a bit later when we talk, because he flew over to see you, didn't he?
He did.
We'll come on to that.
Yeah.
So then 2009... the beautiful Jess has, I think, flown back over from America and come into your...
Danced right into his life.
Danced right into your life, of course. Because, of course,
I was
Jess,
a dancer,
yeah,
let's be honest.
Your passion is for dance and theatre, drama?
Yeah, so that was my life from being 3 years old. I was lucky enough, again, like Dom, to have a career in the arts. And I didn't actually retire until I was pregnant with Luca. So, yeah, my life was similar to Dominic's, as in the dedication and the discipline that was involved, but obviously in 2 different worlds. So yeah.
It's funny when we talk, she talks like the football like choreography, don't you?
Well,
Which
I do.
There is some alongside
it's
that.
that high performance, that discipline,
It's the extra
Yeah.
10%.
very similar skill sets.
We like to refer to set pieces. I call them choreography. Player coming off the bench, waiting in the wings, offside, upstaging. It's the same thing, really.
Did you? I know I might look like I've eaten him, but did you know that I was related to Louis Spence?
I can see the resemblance.
Is this the one?
He dances like him as well. No,
I definitely don't.
I think it was the walk. I saw you walk in this room, and the hips were going.
Oh,
The hips were.
the hips
sorry,
were going.
sorry, darling.
No. Louis is my wife's cousin.
Wow.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, but that I think you're spot on there in terms of the discipline, and when you think about how fit you've got to be in the core and the dedication.
Yeah.
And you guys would have probably trained a lot harder than what the footballers would have had to have
Yeah.
done.
Well, I did have a T-shirt saying, "If ballet was easy, it would be called football." So.
So on that, before we have our first domestic, although great T-shirt, retirement. Obviously, you went then from Leeds to Blackburn to Stoke.
Yeah.
No disrespect to any Blackburn or Stoke fans listening or watching, but
Yeah.
Retirement. How did you find retirement?
I was still going to the training ground because I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd rock up at Stoke and everyone would be like, "What are you doing here? You've kind of retired, Dom." I know, but I just miss it. I just miss being around the group and the lads and the banter and all this. And then I suppose when you can't be there again, then that's when you fall into bad things, or on a path to different things, and you're having to change your life in different ways.
Well, I think for you though, there was no big finale. There was no. This is your last game.
I never got a thank you from anyone really.
It was all sort of left up in the air, wasn't it?
Yeah,
for
it was
you?
kind of because it was like I was 34. I'd have this massive surgery on my back, and I kind of got to the point where I'm in pain here constantly. And the last few games I played for Stoke, I was having 5-6 local anaesthetics before every game. So it was no fun. Yeah. But you're out on the pitch, and then we actually managed to get promoted that year. So it was a huge achievement for Stoke to get promoted with the team that we had. And that's, again, the lads will all tell you themselves. If it wasn't for us all being hard cases and wanting to put a foot in and putting our body on the line, we wouldn't. I don't think Stoke we would have achieved it without that group of lads all on the same page with a bit of hunger to try and get somewhere. Because I know for a fact that Stoke's lads were earning peanuts. Peanuts. I mean, nothing. And I used to chat to the young lads and try. I used to help them out as much as I can, even financially, with nights out and trips and stuff. That's kind of, you take over a certain role when you become captain of a club when you're a bit older.
Big brother stroke father
Kind of,
figure.
yeah. And you're trying to especially the lads who played in similar positions to me, centre halves or holding midfield players or left back. I kind of took them younger lads under my wing a little bit and tried to educate them a little bit. Which I don't think is a bad thing to do because you're trying to help them because yes, in your days are up, and I knew that was happening because my injuries were coming up so bad. I literally at Stoke, I think Tony used to say you used to go for a swim, so I'd literally be in the local leisure centre having a swim, which getting prepared for a game is not ideal, but that's what I had to do. But yeah, listen.
Retirement hit you hard.
It did hit me hard, yeah, and then I didn't really know what to do, and then I think that's what led to maybe a bit more drinking, a bit more gambling, etc. Then it's snowball effect.
Because you've got the time, and you've got the money, I suppose.
Yeah,
as well.
and I think a lot of the other football lads as well, and not just footballers, my mates, quite well to do. Some of them, we all like to bet, and we all like to pint, and
you all had an awful lot of time on your hands.
Yeah, we had time on our hands.
How bad did it get? Do you mind sharing that with us?
No, it was bad. Yeah, I mean, like you say, when you're having 100 grand on a horse, or and then you maybe having more. But I think sometimes you get into this position where you're thinking, right, okay, another couple of wins on summer, and I'm back. It's back to quits again, and you can go again.
Would this be? Would you go to the racetrack? Would you watch it at home? How would you?
But basically, because I had horses with Gary Flitcroft, an ex, Man City and
Blackburn.
Yeah, great kid, and great guy, and we had horses together. So yeah, we'd go the races a lot. We had a runner in the Grand National Day, not the actual Grand National, but a couple of races before that. We had races at Cheltenham, you name it. We had runners at all different places, so we loved it. But obviously, back then when you've got resources, you jump on a bloody helicopter. And between 4 years, being honest, it wasn't that much money because we were all earning not bad dough. So, say £1,000 each, gets you to Cheltenham and back, or to Aintree and back, even though you could probably get there in an hour on, in your car. But you want to have a beer, don't you, when you get there? That's kind of what it was.
But in those days, it was all about the experience. So the day at the races, it was great. You're around your friends, you're having a great time.
Yeah.
But when you were in your depths, it was a very lonely time because you were still chasing the high of the win, but you were doing it on your own in a bookies, and the helicopter's gone, the friends are gone.
So the gambling element and the combination with alcohol, that's chasing the feeling of the 3 points on a Saturday.
Oh, absolutely.
Or 10 to 5 in the changing room with the boys after a win.
Yeah, and that's what you're trying to replicate, but you never can. But just going back to the gambling, mine did start, and obviously listening to a little bit like John Hartson's when he spoke. It was very interesting. It was like lots of things that are really similar to what John has been through with his gambling. And mine started living in Southport on the slot machines. It doesn't sound like a lot of money back then, but it mounts up. And even when I was playing for Liverpool in the first team, people would see me in the arcades. And they're like, this is weird I'm doing. No, still in the arcades and you playing for Liverpool. But that's where my mates were. We all grew up in the same places. And yeah, that's probably where the addiction started on the gambling side of it, which is horrible. It's a horrible thing, and I think if I'm right, I think it's the hardest one to kick, gambling.
Do you think football's got a problem with gambling now?
Yeah, massive. I don't know exactly who's gambling anymore, but for my era, everyone was having a bet. I
think that they've sort of eradicated the party lifestyle. Like you don't see footballers falling out of nightclubs anymore. So that, which was an epidemic in the 90s and the early 2000s, is now gone. They've sorted that one.
Yeah.
Gambling is so much harder to deal with.
John describes it as the silent addiction.
It is.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really, really sort of prominent.
Well, it's funny when sometimes you're on a night out and it gets to like 1 a.m, everyone's gone. You're in you're at a pub, but obviously you've got a lock in, and you're all playing free card brag, or you're playing a game, some form of card game, but you've all thrown in so much money or whatever. I've seen lads, and obviously I was a footballer at this point. You've got lads who are firemen, we've got policemen, you've got lads who are on the tools. We're all playing, but obviously if they lose, they won't be able to go home because the wife's going to kill them. At that point, I was okay. If I lost 500 quid or £1,000, it was okay for me, and it really opened my eyes to that. I actually at times had to give them their money back when we were having a bet together because I felt so bad. They ain't going to be able to put food on the table. And that was one of the first realizations. I thought, flipping heck, this is not good, this. And you're trying to educate someone else, but you're not helping them that much because you're going to do the same thing later on. But I was generally trying to help them, but in a way I probably wasn't. I should have actually taken that money and let them make their own way. But being the person you are, it's
almost full circle though, because and forgive me if I'm wrong, but you're trying to correct somebody on their mistakes or educate them. Yeah. But nobody had helped you. Nobody had educated you on that.
No.
But you were stuck in that life lesson.
Yeah. And I think if I go through it, like back in the early days at Liverpool, everyone's having a bet. 1 or 2 players in the whole squad wouldn't be having a bet or a drink. That's how much it was going on.
Do you think football also prepares the footballers for retirement in terms of, because when I've sat down with some of which are your teammates, and it amazes me. Sometimes I laugh, but then afterwards I thought it was a bit, the penny drops afterwards, sort of a couple of hours after you finish having the conversation. Lads didn't know how to make dental appointments or the doctors because everything was taken care of them from being a teenager. And all of a sudden they get to mid-30s, they've got a few quid in the bank, and their routine is gone. You talk about discipline, and the routine's gone. That
was the main thing for Dominic. He needed a routine. He still needs a routine. We're back to, we've done full circle. We're back to routine. Don't break it at any cost, because it's the way he either has a good day or a bad day. If he's got no routine in his day, everything's out the window.
Say that. Does that help you in the morning mentally, that I'm doing this at that time, then I'm doing this, and then it's there because you're mentally and physically busy?
Of course,
Yeah.
it definitely helps. I mean, even I know. I mean, I don't have many bad days. I don't. That's the truth. I just crack on with what's going on in my day. But I have a little plan every day. So it's up in the morning, take my little boy to school, home, get in my gym, get an hour's training done, and if I want to do a little bit more, do a little bit more again. I have to manage that some days, but in the main, that routine has helped me massively. And the one thing I regret is not having that routine for maybe 4 or 5 years, where I did go off the rails slightly. Well, I say slightly, very much off the rails, didn't I? But again, Jess can probably talk a little bit about that. But, you know, for me, I felt lost. You know, I bought a bar in Leeds, which was great. 7 years of madness, but it was an amazing time. Everyone loved my bar. Of course they did. But, you know, I don't regret it. Far from it, I don't. We had some great times. But sometimes I think to myself, why did I get involved in that business? It's like, you know, I don't know any footballers, I'm sure there'll be a couple that have bought a bar and actually done all right from it, because you end up spending all the profits yourself, or if you're not, your mates are. So
Well,
it's a bit of a...
I was just going to say that, Jess, that Dom refers to them as great times of everything happening.
Yeah, not so great
Yeah.
for the family.
Yeah.
But it was a time of Dominic trying to maintain control of his life, and his life was not in control at all. He was making really, really bad decisions, both business-wise and personally, surrounding himself with people who he thought had his best interests at heart, and actually were complete charlatans and were there to take and not to give. But of course, when you surround yourself with these people who are actually sycophants and they're telling you how wonderful you are, which he is wonderful, but Dom was buying into it and believing it, and all that praise comes with, can I have? Would you do? How about this deal? And Dom fell for it time and time again, and it caused so much trauma in our lives that, you know, there were times when we really very nearly had to call it quits.
Yeah.
But it was a time where Dom was listening but not hearing, and listening to the wrong people and taking the wrong advice.
And then take us, if you can, Jess, 2019.
Yeah.
This is the bit that gets me every time I've spoken about it. But if you can, take us back to that day and what happened, because it was a day you'd been commentating for Liverpool TV the night before, I think.
Yeah. It came completely on the back of Dom riding a really successful period in his career. We'd been through the hard times. He was on the way back up, and he'd put in the hard yards to make sure life was good again for himself, for his family, for us as a couple. And things were going great. He was working for Sky Sports. He was working for Liverpool TV. And the build-up was out of the blue, really. It started with headaches and some blurred vision. I remember there was one Sunday he was driving to a game, and I got a phone call saying that he'd curbed the car. He'd hit something. He thought he'd hit a pothole and burst the tyre. Can we come and swap cars? And of course, you go ahead and you just swap your car and you get on with your day. These headaches had started. There was a few days when he had to take himself to bed, and you know, Dom's is not a sick person. He just gets on with it. So that it sort of struck me slightly. But the fact that he made an appointment to go see the GP settled me. So off he went, and you know, the amount of GPs that would have sent him away just and said, you've got a headache or you've got a virus. Thankfully, our GP said, Dominic, you've lived in this village for 7 years and I've never seen you. I'm going to send you for a CT scan. But he was scheduled for 3 weeks' time. Dominic was going off to Singapore to play for the Liverpool Legends. So he said to the doctor, well, I'm away for 10 days and then my scan will be done when I get back. And she said, okay, that's fine. And I think at that point, she pulled some strings to make sure that he didn't get on the flight, because a cancellation came in on the Monday and his flight was leaving on the Tuesday. Dom drove himself to hospital. I was teaching a ballet class. He was in pain, and he wasn't himself, but he was he was 80%. So it wasn't overly concerning. Like I say, he drove himself to the hospital. I wasn't overly concerned that Monday. But then the phone call came that changed our lives completely. And he said, they've taken a scan. They've seen something in my brain and they won't let me leave the hospital. Can you come? Because I don't know what they're saying. So I dashed over to Calderdale and they put us into a room and said, we can't deal with you here, but we think Dom's got a massive brain tumour. So we're going to start by trying to control the swelling, at which point they just started giving him lots and lots of steroids so that then made him vomit. Within 72 hours, Dom was blind and couldn't walk. He was in a wheelchair. He had no recollection of who was around him. His face had distorted. 72 hours, all that happened. But he could have been on that flight to Singapore. Yeah. He had a massive seizure on the Wednesday morning. If he had got on that flight, that seizure would have happened in the air and nobody would have been there to save him. So, you know, I
didn't realise that about that you were due to go out on the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look at, you know, a higher power, you look at fate, you look at pure luck. Something or somebody was looking out for us and made sure that he didn't get on that flight.
Yeah. And then, how much of that can you remember, Dom?
Not a lot, honestly. It's even hearing it back, it's just I knew at some point where when I arrived at the hospital, I felt all right going from in because it was right when I got there, I felt fine. And as soon as I sat down, for some reason, I literally sat in my chair and I was waiting for me, to get me scan. Literally, I just felt it was just a weird feeling. I didn't know what was going on, and I felt like I didn't know where I was. And then straight away she went, "All right, here you come. You come in here and get your scan." She must have thought something's not quite right with him here. But anyway, they took me in for that scan, and within minutes they had me out of it. And I thought, I was thinking to myself, even though I wasn't really with it, I was like, that was quick.
Yeah, that was too quick.
They must have seen it somewhat very quickly. And then obviously that's the last I remember. And the next, I remember being, I remember getting,
they blue lighted you from Calderdale
to Leeds,
into Leeds.
Because that's where Leeds, obviously, that's in Leeds, that's where they do the operations, the surgery, the brain stuff. So
I think, obviously I only just met you just shortly now, but big Dom Matteo, hard as absolute nails, probably played the last 4 or 5 years of your career with multiple injuries, got up and got on with your job every single day. You must have known or been in that much pain, but still didn't show it to anybody to take yourself to the hospital. And there's a real sort of message here for men. We ain't big, we're not strong, no one cares. But to have that, like you say, that me and Ben say this a lot, we believe everything happens for a reason. And that's a horrible reason to go through what you just did.
Yeah.
But well done for noticing it and taking yourself there.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I had this weird feeling for a few years actually that I wasn't performing or being at my best. And people go, "Oh, you weren't looking after yourself." I always trained well. Ex-players and managers will probably say different, but I trained well. I don't care what any of them say.
Training was different back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But it was. But I still put my shift in.
Yeah.
I'll be one still staying behind, even though I was towards the end of my career, helping with the younger lads, doing stuff with them. I was always like that. But this was completely different. This obviously, when I've had injuries, I've had back surgery, I've had lots of surgeries. Obviously, for me now, it's like when that happens, you always say, "Why me?" Don't you?
Yeah.
You do. You think, "Why is it me? I'm a decent guy," but it's not like that in that world. What's happened to me is because it's a build-up of. We think it was a childhood cancer. I mean, Jess can explain this a little bit better.
Yeah. So just recently, it has come to light. Dom's tumour was so rare that it was sent off. It had been in his head for that long, it had turned to bone. Yeah. So there is a possibility, and we can't say for sure, but there's a possibility he could have played his whole career with a brain tumour that was just lying dormant and causing him no...
Well, it's a childhood cancer, so it probably would have been.
With how medical advances are now and how professional footballers are like there's medical departments now.
Yeah.
In '93, when you signed for Liverpool, I don't think we had a physiotherapist, right?
Well, kind of. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right. But do you think if you were playing now, because of how regular you play, it would have been picked up?
For sure.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a brain, it would have shown up straight away from my point of view.
But players now, they will have a CT scan
Yeah.
once a season or whatever.
I would have
Yeah, I
thought
mean,
so.
you look at the game and you know the whole game stopped for a head injury or a clash of heads. You know, is there a rule for concussion? You can't play
Yeah.
a certain amount of
Saying
time.
that, I think I've had a concussion and played pretty quick after.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
It was
that's that era.
different. Yeah,
That was
yeah.
that era, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite sad to see that football's moved on medically, but the basics, it hasn't moved on at all. Here's a young lad, great talent. We're going to play. We're going to give you a load of money. We're not going to advise you what to do with that money. We're not going to educate you.
Yeah.
And then when we're done,
Well, we've said this. Steve
Yeah.
Steve Thompson, he won the World Cup with England rugby.
Yeah. That's right.
Sadly, got early onset dementia, and that's as a result of playing rugby.
Yeah.
Because what we know now is very different to what we did 25 years ago. But if you've got a hamstring or you break a bone, there's that rehabilitation process. You've got something tangible in terms of the X-ray.
Yeah.
With your mind and with your brain, unless you can go and do that CT scan,
Yeah.
which thankfully that GP made happen, you don't necessarily. And this is where I feel it's linked. Also, it comes into mental health and preparing you as a footballer that's played in front of 50, 60, 70,000 people, and then just very quickly it's gone.
Yeah.
And then it's like, cheers, Dom. Thanks for your 20 years of service.
don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, but who prepares you mentally for that, and also financially? Because I think there's a, and I'm not close enough to the game in terms of the authorities to know what they do, but I would like to think that from a young age, a professional footballer is getting advice around pensions and investments. Are used loosely, but listen, guys, you're going to earn a lot of money, but by the time you're 32 to 36, it's probably you're not going to have that level of income. Therefore, going forward, so you need to be prepared for life after football.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, you have, or you think you've got my agent was incredible all the way through and still is. Struan Marshall he's excellent, and he really is. Looked after Stevie, Carrie, all the boys. He's absolutely brilliant. Still to this day, he's in touch, constantly in touch. Always wants to help. If I need anything, he's there for me. Him and his wife and the kids.
It was Struan actually that I called from the hospital.
Yeah, Struan was the first person, obviously.
When Dom
I was
had
asking for
seizure.
him apparently.
Yeah.
So that's my old agent, and obviously, he's been the constant really for me. All the way through, and he still is, even though I don't see him as much because obviously things go on in life and business and work and whatever, but he was always key for me. But I think then the financial side of it, which was probably nothing to do with Struan, that side of it, in my opinion, was dealt with badly, really badly. And I don't care what people think, and if I don't have to say names, but they know what happened. They might say that's down to me, but I believe I was put into some bad investments and I wasn't told actually what they were all about. It's kind of like, Dom, you just get on with your football, we'll look after the rest, and you crack on.
And I've heard that so often, and it's wrong.
It is wrong, and the other side of it is, I speak now to other players who've been made bankrupt and all this stuff, and I've been down that road. And there's more. It's going to happen to so many more people.
Do you know what the stat is?
Go on.
Within 3 years of retiring as a professional footballer, how many made bankrupt?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
How many do you think?
I would say more than half.
No, I think it's 60%.
Oh, it's more than half. Yeah.
I think it's 60%. And
No, I mean, that's
unfortunately, there's a
ridiculous.
similar statistic, which I think is 40%, which is the number of failed marriages.
I was just going to say divorce.
And that's those stats, by the way, they're in the public domain. That's based on, I think last year the study was done.
But it's like I said to you, when at the end of Dom's career, he was still surrounded by all these people, and Dom unfortunately went bankrupt maybe 6 years after retiring. He was completely on his own. There was nobody there with the arm and saying, I'm going to help you. We're going to get through this together. Apart from Struan, yeah. But he wasn't somebody that looked after your finances. He was there as your heartbeat, your mate.
Yeah.
But all your financial people were
I don't know what
okay.
happened.
This is
Yeah,
you,
I mean
Dom.
that was
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that was a disappointing thing because I think to myself, you know, you put that trust in someone. You know, listen, I'm not saying I'm no angel. I must have made some mistakes with maybe the gambling stuff, but not enough to put me where it put me. And the investments I had to invest in with, and then the tax I had to pay on some of these investments, which I would generally thought I'd paid.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like you get.
And also, you're a professional footballer.
It's not my job.
Yeah, that's
your
not your
profession.
domain,
You're
yeah.
not a financier.
I had no idea.
That's-
But yeah, that was, and I think I'm lying. I'd be lying if I said they have these days where I think back and go, "Jeez, I wish that was done. I wish my dad had done it for me."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that. You know, because he wouldn't have put me in that position.
But I can only imagine how many ex-footballers that are sitting here having that same thought.
But this is
and
the
thinking,
challenge, right, Jess? Not all of them are prepared to be as brave as
No,
you,
no.
Yeah.
right? And,
Well,
and
I
others
understand that
to put their
because
hand
the-
up and go,
yeah.
do you know what? I have been taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
I have been because of this, and they won't speak up. And
Yeah.
and I also appreciate that as well. But I do feel that the authorities need to get a handle of it because all what happens is more and more money comes into the game,
Yeah.
and it is an epidemic within that. Take me back to 2019 and that sort of recovery, if you like. David O'Leary, I know when he heard,
Yeah.
he jumped on a plane because I think he was living
He did.
in
He was in
Mallorca.
he was in Marbella.
Marbella.
Yeah.
I knew it'd become with them.
Yeah. So the Wednesday, Dom had a monstrous seizure, and as the day unfolded, we'd had a crisis meeting with the surgeon who had scheduled a brain surgery for the Friday. This was on the Wednesday morning, and I had Dom's parents come over to the hospital. And Mary and Albert, they're in their 80s now, so it was heartbreaking on every, from every angle. And it was a lot for them in the hospital, and they asked me, would I take them home? So it was a 20-minute drive back to our house, and I literally just got them to the doorstep when the hospital rang me and said, Dom's had a massive seizure, and I need you to get here as soon as you can. We're doing everything we can.
Oh, no.
So the drive back to, and I didn't even say anything to Mary and Albert. I literally just handed them over to my dad, who
You
was
did
there.
the right thing by not saying anything to me.
And got in the car. I don't really remember the drive, to be honest. All I kept thinking, and I'll probably get emotional, is I just want to get there before he goes. And that was my main worry, that he'd go without me being there. But as I drove into the city centre, I got stopped at a red light, and the anxiety was pulsing through me. And then all of a sudden, this calm just came over me. And I thought, he's got this. He's got this. We're going to be all right. So I drove into the car park. I abandoned my car in the ambulance bay. A security guy was chasing me through the hospital. Excuse me, lady, you can't park there. And I just said, please help me. I need to find my husband. He's in resuscitation. Please help me. And he did, God love him. They had stabilised Dom within the time of me getting the phone call, but he was in a coma. There was machines left, right, and all over the place. And a team of ICU doctors came from nowhere. And I don't think I should have been privy to this information. I think they probably forgot that I was in the room. Because they started having a massive row. Like, they were arguing left, right and centre about what the plan should be. And I just remember this one guy saying, we need to look at him. Look at him. He's telling us what needs to be done. We need to call Ryan Matteo. The surgery needs to be done now. It's this or the unthinkable. And that decision was made with me in the room. And within the hour, they wheeled Dom away from me and performed the miracle that was removing between 90 and 95% of his brain tumour that night, under serious amount of stress on him physically, mentally. Ryan, his surgeon, was over the moon when he spoke to me.
So you've stayed at the hospital? Did you go home?
I went home to literally just update Mary and Albert.
yeah.
I didn't want to do it over the phone.
Of course.
My sister came and sat with me. We sat for maybe 2 hours, and then I went back to the
How long was the
hospital.
surgery?
It was about 9 hours.
While all this is going on, Luca's your only child?
We've got 3 children, but
Yeah.
the two girls were in Cheshire with their mum.
Yeah.
Luca was at home. Luckily, he didn't really know what was going on.
No.
He was only 6 at the time, so we tried to shelter him from it as much.
5-year-olds.
Yeah. So you do your job as a mum to just try and until you need to have those hard conversations. Kids don't need the preparation. They don't.
I think mums are probably better in that situation as well, because I can guarantee I'd have gone to shit because you had parents, children, Dom.
Yeah.
I bet you weren't looking after yourself because you're just worried about everybody.
I think you go on adrenaline for as long as you can, and I think that I probably survived on adrenaline for around 6 months, to be honest, because every day was anxiety driven every single day.
And so you get the call from Ryan.
I get a call from Ryan, who is elated, and he says, "There's a fly in the ointment. I think I've lost his right eye," and I didn't care. My husband was alive. I did not care. He could have come out of there with no arms and no legs, and I would have still been over the moon. So I made my way to ICU. They'd sort of prepared me and said he won't be breathing on his own. He's got a drain coming out of his brain, a feeding tube in, and we're going to keep him that way for 48, 72 hours. So we just want to sort of, it's going to be scary when you walk in. On the way in, I saw Ryan. He said, just after I'd put the phone down to you, I shone a light into Dom's eye and his pupils were dilating. So, I think that we've saved his eye, which was, another bonus. And then when I walked into the room, breathing apparatus was out, feeding tube was out. He sat up in bed. And he says, "All right,
What's
kidder."
the problem?
As I walked through the door, "All right, kidder." Yeah. And I literally could have just fallen on the floor there and then, because I'd prepared
Well, I still
myself.
can't remember that, though.
No.
That's the bizarre thing. I still can't remember any of this. When the
No.
people come in the rooms, like
Just
to visit,
completely removed
just
from all
can't-
that drama.
I have no idea
Yeah.
what was going on.
How long did you stay in hospital for?
About
He was
month,
in
wasn't
for
it?
a month
Yeah.
before treatment started. So we laugh about Dom when he talks about the basics in football, but that's where we had to start with Dom's recovery, because after the brain surgery, the part of the brain that had been messed with was all his faculties. So Dominic couldn't remember how to brush his teeth, how to put his socks on, and that's where we had to start.
And
you know?
just on that, when you say you couldn't remember, you still having a conversation, but in terms of brushing your teeth, you didn't know how to do it.
Didn't know how to do it. I didn't have to do anything. Like when I was like, I remember sitting and the nurse saying to me, "Do you want to go for a shower?" And I was like, "Shower?" Yeah, I'm actually thinking, what's a shower? That's how bad I was. I was like, "What's a shower?" And I'm like, and then obviously she took me to show me.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. And then I said, "Well, what do I do next?"
Yeah, so it was the word.
Yeah.
The word wasn't recognisable,
Yeah.
but the objects were. So
Yeah.
he knew that was a toothbrush and that was
Yeah.
that was toothpaste, but
I
he
didn't
didn't
know
know
what to do with
how to put them together.
And that was on most simple things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't think of another way.
No,
to
yeah.
say that,
You
but
name it, I couldn't do it.
And reading and writing as well.
Nothing.
Reading and writing is still a struggle. It's still an ongoing daily battle for you, isn't it? But there are some days, and this is the really crazy thing about the human brain, there are some days when it is firing on all cylinders and he can read a text message.
Yeah.
And then there's other days that worry me when he's like, what do those 3 words say? He can't find the info. The brain's not firing that day.
And are you? I mean, I'm so pleased to hear everything's fine now. There's no. I'm guessing that you have to have like a regular scan annually or something.
Obviously, he started it on 2-3 months, and now I'm up to 6 months as we speak. But I'll be back in probably another month for my next one. Obviously, just got to try and keep moving forward as I have been doing.
Yeah, we're 4 years,
4 years
into the journey
yeah,
now. It'll be 4 years in
November.
my gosh, no, it'll be 5 years in
5
November.
years November.
Yeah.
And do you think that there's? I mean, listen, I look at that and think first of all, marriage goals. I mean, my wife's my rock.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I would have got through
No,
what you have
do
been.
you know what? It's true. You know, you don't say this stuff like this enough, but obviously I love Jess to bits. But it's like, for me, being the guarded person, I wouldn't say them words. I never used to say it to mum and dad at home because we didn't talk like that at home. I wasn't growing up that way. Love you, love you, love you, all that. Whereas Jess's family are all a bit like that, aren't you? You all love, you know.
Oh, it's a love fest.
It's a love festival, which when you're not used to that environment, it's like, you know, now I say it to mum and dad all the time because I realise now how important it is to say them words. But for me, when you've not grown up that way,
You weren't allowed to show weakness.
no, maybe.
Yeah, that era of...
You weren't allowed to.
Yeah, maybe.
And
Yeah,
that's-
maybe it is. And maybe, you know, then you get to the point where you think, oh, I need to say that more.
Yeah,
You know,
listen,
and all this,
you know,
it's-
the words weren't there, but the actions were always there.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
that.
most
I
of the
know,
time.
but you know, sometimes I always think to myself that, like when I see my mum now, and my mum's not very well. Well, she's doing better, but she's got mixed dementia. My mum, so I know when I get to see her, which is not very often, it means something more. But it shouldn't matter that because these are the ones who've looked after me all my life, and you know, should have been there more. But obviously at the moment, because I can't drive. I just feel
Dominic,
like
you were there and you speak to your mum and dad every
No, I
single
do.
day, and
I
there's
mean,
not many
some
there's
of my
not many
mates- some of
people
my mates
around
think-
that do that.
Some of
and,
my
you
mates
know,
think I'm a bit weird because I call my mum twice a day.
Yeah.
They're like, you're a mummy's boy. I say, well, I don't really care.
No.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be a mummy's boy. You know, my mum and dad were hugely influential into the way I, you know, was brought up, being adopted, and then obviously now we've found my birth mother through along my family as well. So
Yeah, we're going to come on to that in a minute. Go on.
I've just got to say one thing that 15 years you guys have been together, yeah?
Yeah.
What's a roller coaster?
There's never a dull moment.
No, like we joke and we jest about we've had a row or are you okay, this, that, and the other, but I don't mean to laugh because I think it's probably making
Listen,
me a little bit nervous.
laughter is the best
Look,
medicine.
My dad always said, laugh or cry.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
2009, your career comes to an end.
Yeah.
Between the next 10 years, you probably go through the worst 10 years of your life.
Yeah.
Then you've got 5 years of that, and now you're coming out the end. This is, I'd like to say, your honeymoon period, right? What did D. Ream say? Things can only get better.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, like, when you walk in and you're finished and they're going to send you home, I think the hospital's trying to support you as much as they can. And I've got to say, the hospital have been incredible. They've
incredible.
just been, the nurses, everyone. I mean, I know people will be saying this just because you've got to say it. I generally mean this. The girls used to get in and watch, what did you used to watch Love Island, was it with them?
No, it was I'm a Celebrity because it
Celebrity.
was that time of year.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it
a
was like the
Celebrity,
nurses would.
yeah.
The thing is with Dominic, because of the way his brain was working, and at this time he was on so many steroids, he was bouncing off the walls. He couldn't sleep at all. He would FaceTime me 15, 16 times
And Frazer.
throughout the night.
Frazer
Yeah, I
and
mean,
his
I
missus.
wasn't the only one that were getting them. Paul Robbie was in Australia, and he was getting FaceTime.
I can't
It
remember all
was just
this
it was
at all.
relentless because it was just how his brain was working. So the girls that worked on the ward used to go into his room and keep him company and take his iPad off him so that we could all get a good night's sleep because, yeah, he was a menace.
It's a
on
weird
that.
feeling that though, because when you actually can't sleep, you go a bit mad.
Yeah, it's delirium.
I was
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
like, I felt like you sleep for half an hour and that's you for the next 20. You know, I was literally, wow. And I'm always, for one point, even though I had a private room in the end, I was obviously with everyone else at one point, and I'm in this little private room. And I mean, mentally, you had people handcuffed and there was all kinds going on because of brain injuries and stuff. It was just bizarre. But I just like sitting there, just to have some kind of, just see somebody or maybe just say hello to
That
somebody.
human interaction.
Because when you sat and you're locked in that room and you're just looking at them four walls and you're going, oh my gosh. But you know you can't go anywhere.
I want to talk about long lost family, but just before
Yeah.
I do, a certain Jurgen Klopp and James Milner, got
that
in
was-
touch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think over 10 million people have watched the video.
really, wow.
I've watched it a couple. I
Yeah.
showed my daughter the other night, and
Yeah.
I got emotional watching it again.
Yeah.
But just what was that like for you when they reached out?
Well, I think first and foremost, the football world helped me and the family massively.
Liverpool were
Liverpool
incredible.
Liverpool were incredible. They really were. You know, the stuff that they've done for me, the things they sent me,
Just the way that they
dealt
looked
with it.
after
They
us
dealt
as a
with it.
family.
Yeah.
They made it easy for me, so I didn't have to speak to people and I didn't have to explain. They took over all of that. Dom's ours. We'll deal with the press. We'll deal with everything. You don't need to worry about that. And that was such a help.
Yeah.
To be honest, at the time, I was so embroiled in Dominic and the hospital. That was the furthest thing from my mind, having to explain to
But it's having that
journalists
comfort blanket,
what's but
knowing that you had people
and they
to
really
support.
were. They incredible. They were just
And I
fantastic.
think when obviously with Millie, or James Milner, I should say, and
Who didn't make it into your starting 11.
yeah, I know. Sorry about that, James. And obviously Jurgen, you didn't get in either, but apologies for that as well. But yeah, I think when you've got two people like that, who obviously I knew Millie, I'd met Jurgen on a few occasions, but not many. And why would I have, But when you actually get around people like that, they're the people you want to be around and have a conversation with, because what they brought that day was obviously Millie. I was his first captain when he was at Leeds United, so he hadn't forgot that, and he remembers me. Like, I can try to think back what he said, but he knew that I'd had most things that went in front of me, and I'd boot a few people and I'd do that, and it was quite tough. And even I think I roomed with him a couple of times. That wouldn't have been fun for him because I was a nightmare to room with. That's the truth. I was.
You still are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but then obviously when you're having a conversation, you're chatting with them two, inspirational guys, motivators, in my opinion, both of them are led by example, and that's what they do. When I see Milner, for any young player, they all look at Ronaldo and Messi and all these guys. If you're looking for a real inspiration, look at Milner. Yeah. The way he's conducted himself. I'm not saying these other two boys has, but that's a realistic goal for a young, talented footballer, is to be anything near James Milner, legend. And then obviously with Klopp involved as well, having this chat and obviously bringing my wife into it as well. Where's the boss and all this, and just nice. And I think it gives me goosebumps talking about this, because when you hear words from someone like James Milner and Jurgen Klopp, it means more than somebody else. Just the way they spoke to me made me feel so special. Just for them few moments, and then obviously I had a private little chat with Jurgen, only for a minute or two, and he just told me a few things. Keep fighting, etc., etc. Like a motivational speech, really. I bet he does the same thing to his players. And he was taking it into a football context for me, and it was just nice that he had the time. Because imagine how busy that guy is. I mean, you'd be talking about one of the busiest men in the world, him, and then obviously for James to help set that up. It was just an amazing conversation. And I'll never forget that. And obviously me and the wife and Lucas seen Liverpool out in Dubai when the lads who weren't involved with the World Cup. I was out there working, and they set up a little day for me, Jess, and a few friends and Luca to go meet the players in Dubai. I mean, Mo Salah and that are there, and my little boy's just like, wow.
Luca is a red, isn't he? He's not Leeds.
No, he's a massive red.
He can change to Leeds occasionally when we go to watch when he comes to the games.
Leeds will probably go up. So
yeah,
I know. Then we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah. But no, I just what you want to try to say is all the football world. I mean, I have to include that Leeds were there for me as well, but Liverpool, the ones who took hold of it and made things happen and made things work quicker. And then I think then Leeds jumped in as well and helped as well. And they still do. Obviously, I work with Leeds at the moment. And Liverpool have got me back doing a bit as well now, which is great for me. And it's great to share my story in a lot of lounges now, because my story is completely different. Obviously, I talk a lot of football, but obviously the amount of people who come up to me talking about what I've got, and
I mean, what you've been. I mean, without repeating what Frazer just said, what you've been through your marriage. It's just. And then what you've done on the field and off the field. I mean, what you accomplished on the field is inspirational on its own. So, we're coming to the end. But one thing I would like to touch on, if we can, is long lost family.
Yeah.
How old were you when you knew that you were adopted?
It was quite a tough moment that in my life, because I had this funny feeling, because my brother was adopted as well. But at this point, I didn't really know, and I never really wanted to ask. But I think when I got to about 9, I think I got to about 9 years old, that my mum and dad kind of said we need to have a quick chat and explain. So they kind of basically said, you're adopted, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what? And I really rebelled. And I really feel bad about that because all they've done is help me and make me, give me a good life. So I always feel bad about that. It makes me feel a bit emotional because I should have dealt with it better. But I was young.
Yeah, you was 9.
I was a young kid.
Yeah.
I know, but sometimes you can still deal with that slightly better. And
It's a big life-changing thing.
Yeah, I know, but
It's huge information, isn't it?
Huge, a young, vulnerable age.
Yeah, because me mum and dad had to. They adopted my brother first because they'd lost my sister, Fiorina. My mum and dad lost their baby, so she passed away when she was 4 months old. So that's why they adopted my brother first, and then they adopted me. So we had a lovely life. Obviously, my birth mother, obviously we know now, was obviously Glasgow. But obviously I grew up in Dumfries, which is on the outskirts, with my mum and dad. And obviously my mum and dad had a fish and chip shops, restaurants, all kinds of stuff going on in the area. My dad was a little bit of an entrepreneur back in the day. Ice cream shops, all that kind of stuff. All the Italians in that part of the world, they've all probably still got them and all done well out of it in restaurants and all that. So I was very lucky and I felt really privileged growing up because I remember my dad had like an E-Type or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what it was, but I look back at the pictures and I say, my dad must have been doing well for himself. But yeah, so growing up there, amazing life. And then obviously when we went to find out,
it was something that you really struggled with. It was something that you went backwards and forwards.
It did, yeah. It was
on over and over again. We'd go 6 months and there'd be no mention about looking for his birth mum, and then something had happened, and then he'd get all the paperwork out, and we'd go through it, and we'd make a decision that yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to actively seek Maggie out. We knew her name, but then equally it'd just get put back into the drawers, and life would continue. And this had gone on for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Every 6 months. Dare I do it? Should I do it? Or, and back off again. And I actually think it was down to Dom's illness that made him
think
this is it. This is what we need to do.
So you approach a show.
Actually, it was Liverpool, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was
together,
Liverpool Football Club.
Yeah, because they've got the contacts for these people, and they put it together, and
they just called up and said, "Are you ready? Do you want to do this?" And Dominic said, "Yeah, let's go for it."
So that moment where you met Maggie, was that genuinely the first time when she came in?
Yeah, she basically told me since that when they put me in the adoption centre, and I was obviously, I think it was 4 months. I was just on my own, wasn't I? Being looked after, whatever. When she gave me up, she said, "I just held on to your little finger for as long as I could until they took you away," which made me feel sad. And she really feels bad about that, but obviously. Not now it's fine. We've had the conversations.
One of your main motivations in finding Maggie was to say, "I'm
all
right.
Yeah, I'm all right.
I've had a lovely life."
Yeah, that was the truth. That is actually really genuine. That is like, I wanted to say thank you. I've had a great life. You made the right decision because she was 16, 17. Yeah. So it's like, especially living in Scotland at that time, it was probably difficult, and they had to make a call. Which was probably, she made the call for me, which was the best thing for me.
And the hardest for her.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the great thing about it now is we're in touch. I think she messaged today, didn't she, or yesterday?
Yeah, she's popping down next week.
Yeah, she's coming to see us next week.
Lovely.
So that'll be nice. And we've still got the relationship going. Because I think that's the most important thing is to maintain that.
Yeah.
Which isn't easy because we're all busy with stuff going on. She's retired, so it's a bit easier. But still for her getting from Glasgow to it's never easy on the trains nowadays, is it? Not slagging the train service off, but
Do you want to hear a really lovely story? So when Dominic was born, Maggie named him Stephen McElhenney. Obviously he was adopted and his name was changed to Dominic Matteo. Maggie watched Dominic play for Scotland on numerous occasions, not knowing that Dominic Matteo was her little boy, Stephen McElhenney. And that's really, that's just some sort of story, that, isn't it? Like, she was there in the crowd, not just on TV. She was actually at Hampden. And
she goes to all the games at Hampden because it's like she can walk it, you see, where she lives. She can walk over.
Imagine getting that information and processing that.
Well, one thing that I think's become apparent over this last hour has been there is somebody I think up there that's got these signposts or these
for sure.
traffic lights on the way to the
Yeah.
hospital where red light, but you know what, Jess, it's going to be right. We're all right now.
Yeah.
And I've found it incredible. A great insight. You've overcome
Huge.
adversity, multiple challenges, and you're still here with a beautiful wife,
Correct.
a wonderful children, a 10-year-old Red.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you because
Thank you.
I've
Thank you for having
enjoyed
us.
it,
Nice.
and I
Thank you,
hope
both
people
of you.
listening
Yeah,
and
thank
watching
you.
have as well.
No, I appreciate you both, and thanks for giving us the time for me and Jess to tell our story, because I think it's really important. Thank you.
That is, thank you.
Cheers, guys.